Senator Risa, minority, sorry. That's important. That's an important distinction. And of course, our chair of the Committee on Public Works and Civil Service, no other than Senator Bong Revilla. Good afternoon, sir. So magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Before we turn it over to the OVP for any presentation they may have, I'd like to give the floor to the head of our institution, the Senate President, sir.
Thank you very much to our dear chairman, to our distinguished colleagues. First of all, sa atong pinalangga na Vice Presidente, my region mate and fellow Mindanaoan, welcome to the Senate, ma'am. We are honored to have you here with us, not just presenting the budget of the Office of the Vice President, but also the budget of the Department, Budget and Management. I'm sorry, budget of the Department of Education. Sorry. I'm here because time and time again, whenever there is a budget deliberation of the OVP, we would always support the budget of the OVP, whoever the Vice President may be, and we give due courtesy to that very important office. And so I'm here also appealing to my colleagues that we give the same courtesy that we have given to the previous vice presidents when it comes to their budget, Mr. Chairman, because I know for a fact that this vice president is a very hardworking vice president. She has the heart for the Filipino people, and she only wants the best for our people. And that's why her budget request, as far as I'm concerned, is a very sound one, is a very, I would say, important measure on how she'd be able to help people, especially in these times of calamities and these times of tragedies, and still within the pandemic. We're still at pandemic response. So with that, Your Honors, I know I will not preempt, but I would just like to appeal to my colleagues that let us give her that due courtesy, the courtesy that we've given previous vice presidents, particularly on the budget of the OVP, and we approve it at the soonest possible time. Maraming salamat po, Chairman. And again, Madam Vice President, welcome to your Senate, ma'am. I'm happy to see you.
What about your offer of the Senate building, Mr. President? Are you willing to make that off record? Or
You know that the good
that
vice
was,
president does not have an office.
Usapang conference room lang ho yun.
And
No, I'm just kidding, Your Honor.
kakausapin natin yung chairman ng accounts.
Thank you, Mr. President.
She's most welcome there.
Thank you, Mr. President. I share in your remarks. We'd like to give Senate President Pro Temp the floor for any remarks you may have.
We welcome Vice President Sara Duterte and the OVP family. I know and I hope that the proceedings will be brief but meaningful, and we are here to support you. Thank you. Welcome to the Senate, Madam Vice President.
Thank you, Madam Senate President Pro Temp. Our minority leader maybe wants to make any initial statements. Yeah?
No initial statement, Mr. Chairman, except that we will be courteously asking questions. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I think there is nothing wrong with asking questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Minority Leader. Senator Bong, maybe anything from you?
Just short manifestation. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Senator Sani, our Senate President, our colleagues in this in the committee. Of course, Vice President Sara Zimmerman Duterte. Good afternoon, ma'am. Welcome to the Senate. It is my honor to express my support for the approval of the budget of the Office of the Vice President, headed by the very capable, intelligent, and hardworking Vice President Inday Sara Duterte. Mr. Chair, naniniwala po ako na ang Office of the Vice President is in good hands and it is bound to achieve new and greater heights.
Okay.
VP Inday Sara's leadership is a testament of excellent governance. Her long, remarkable experience as local chief executive of Davao City, is a comforting assurance that she will be able to empower the office more to provide policies and programs that will ultimately uplift the lives of all Filipinos. The efforts of the Office of the Vice President to bring service closer to the people is a great innovation I understand that the office of the Vice President under VP Inday Sara's leadership has begun establishing satellite offices all over the Philippines. There are now OVP offices in Dagupan, Cebu, Surigao, Zamboanga, Bacolod, Tacloban, and Davao. And I'm sure also in Cavite. Ngayon lang po ay nagkaroon ng satellite offices ang Office of the Vice President sa iba't ibang bahagi ng bansa. I am confident that with these reforms, the OVP will not only bring service closer to the people, but more importantly, bring us service closer more to the people. Mr. Chair, tiwala po ako na malayo ang mararating ng Office of the Vice President sa pangunguna ni VP Inday Sara. At mas marami pa itong matutulungan at malawak ang kanyang matutugunan. I wish well for the men and women of the Office of the Vice President. I wish well for the Vice President Inday Sara Duterte. At this juncture, after the question siguro of my very good friend, ilang katanungan lang, and then I move for the submit na natin to sa plenary, no? Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then, okay.
Mabilis talaga si Senator Revilla. Before I give the floor to our Deputy Minority Leader, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Francis Tolentino, our very hardworking chairman of the Blue Ribbon. And Senator Bongo is also online, Your Honor. So, good afternoon, gentlemen. And we now give the floor for any opening statement to our Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Risa.
Salamat, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon. Mayong hapon, VP. I'll be accompanying and listening to my minority leader ask some questions about the OVP budget, and then I'll be asking some questions in the next hearing about the DepEd budget. Salamat, Mr. Chair. Salamat.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minority Leader Risa. We'd like to state for the record that, as mentioned by our Senate President, the briefings we've given due respect to the Office of the Vice President, not only because the person occupying it is very capable and brilliant, but also because it's a respect for the institution. And many times it has been remarked in the past that unlike the Office of the President, which is fully supplied with all the institutional requirements like buildings, offices, vehicles, staff component, regional offices, the Office of the Vice President is, and this is even before Ma'am Sara, VP Sara took the position. Even before these remarks were made during the time of VP Lenny Robredo, in fact. And we remarked, and one of the most powerful testimonies came, in fact, from Senator Nancy Binay, whose father was the occupant of the office before VP Robredo. And she was saying how it was very difficult to conduct business on such a meager budget, which is why I think this institution, and I'm sure under the leadership of Senate President Zubiri, will continue to be supportive of the OVP as an institution. So without further ado, we'd like to, maybe Senator Tolentino, rather, I'm sorry, I almost forgot, would like to give an opening statement. Yeah.
No opening statements. Just to second whatever motion positively would result from this committee hearing.
Napagod ka na sa Blue Ribbon, Mr. Chairman. Opo. We'll give the floor to Madam Vice President. Ma'am, any presentation you may have?
Yes, thank you, the honorable members of the Senate of the Philippines. On behalf of the Office of the Vice President, we thank the Senate for the opportunity to brief the esteemed committee on finance on our fiscal year 2023 budget, including the plans and programs. But let me just acknowledge the people who worked on our budget. We have here Attorney Zulaika Lopez, our Chief of Staff, Mr. Lemuel Artonio, our Assistant Chief of Staff, Attorney Rosaline Sanchez, our Director for Administration and Finance, Attorney Reynold Monsayak, our OVP spokesperson, Ma'am Julieta Villa del Rey, our Chief Accountant, Kelvin Jerome Tenido, our Chief Budget Officer, Caroline Lourdes Mangalili, our Chief Planning Officer, Norman Baloro, our Head of the Local Affairs and Special Projects, and Jeffrey Tupas, our Head of Media and Public Relations. At this point, may I request the presentation of our audiovisual on fiscal year 2023 budget, including the plans and programs, and thereafter we are willing to accept questions. Thank you.
The Office of the Vice President has been implementing programs, projects, and activities committed to help marginalized and underprivileged Filipinos. Now, the OVP has defined its mission is to deliver efficient, accessible, and responsive public services and programs that empower, in order to achieve its vision to reach, serve, and create lasting impact on the lives of the Filipino people. Thus, we wish to present the OVP's proposed 2023 budget to sustain our operations, continue our programs, and commence with our projected PPAs for next year. With less than 3 months in office, the OVP has already pursued 4 landmark PPAs in the field of social services. Medical and burial assistance, a program that has been a staple of the OVP since Vice President Noli de Castro. And new programs, Libreng Sakay, Disaster Operations Center, and Pagbabago Campaign. Through synergizing efforts with other agencies and OVP personnel, the OVP has delivered services to thousands of our in-need kababayans in various parts of the country. We are currently strategizing and putting proper mechanisms in place as we prepare to roll out more programs later this year and early next year, including Kalusugan food trucks, relief for individuals in crisis and emergencies, Peace 911, and the replication of Davao City's very own livelihood program for women and the LGBT community, Magnegosyo Taday. The OVP's goal to reach, serve, and create lasting impact is best realized when we connect with our grassroots constituents to cascade our programs. The OVP sees an opportunity for a more convenient and practical way to provide our fellow Filipinos access to basic social services through the establishment of our OVP satellite offices and the Disaster Operations Center. 7 OVP satellite offices were inaugurated in key areas. For Luzon, we have Dagupan City, Pangasinan. For Visayas, we have Tacloban City in Leyte, Cebu City in Cebu, and Bacolod City in Negros Occidental. And for Mindanao, we have Tandag City in Surigao, Zamboanga City in Zamboanga del Sur, and Davao City in Davao del Sur. The OVP satellite offices are mandated to replicate the services of the central office and become counterparts in our disaster relief operations. Meanwhile, the Disaster Operations Center is tasked to be our front line in disaster response and lead coordination with our local disaster risk reduction and management councils. Now, to provide an overview of OVP office operations centered at providing welfare to our countrymen and women, as well as the advocacies we are undertaking in the pursuit of unified development. Our Medical and Burial Assistance Program is funded as financial assistance or subsidy under the Annual General Appropriations Act. With various process and system enhancements, including further expansion through the establishment of satellite offices, this program supplements other government healthcare programs that assist poor, marginalized, vulnerable, and disadvantaged communities. From January to September 27, 2022, the total resources mobilized for medical assistance has reached 276 million pesos, serving more than 18,000 beneficiaries. In partnership with the Department of Transportation, the OVP launched Libreng Sakay. This is a free transport program that aims to provide relief to Filipinos dependent on public transportation to go to work, school, and other places. 5 buses have been deployed to transport passengers in Metro Manila, Bacolod, Cebu, and Davao on specific schedules. From the program's launch on August 3 to September 27, the program has served more than 84,000 passengers. The newly launched OVP Disaster Operations Center executed its first operation in response to the Abra earthquake on July 27, 2022. A total of 3,000 dining starter kits and 360,000 liters of bottled water were turned over to the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office. The Pagbabago campaign is the newest undertaking of the OVP. The project, which shares school supplies with students, is an advocacy campaign of the office that aims to instill the value of education to school children. From July to September 27, the OVP was able to distribute 2,900 bags to various schools across the country. Through the RICE program, a special assistance food box is extended to families or individuals who are in need and are not eligible for medical, burial, or other forms of assistance under the existing programs of the OVP. The Kalusugan food trucks will be utilized in the event of disaster, conflict, or calamity as a mobile food kitchen, supplying food packs and other relief goods to affected areas in Visayas and Mindanao. The trucks will also conduct nutrition programs in schools to support children who are suffering from malnutrition, hunger, and poor health development. The OVP recognizes gender equality and acknowledges the value and potential contribution of women in various fields. Starting 2023, this program will further expand to men and the LGBTQIA+ community, with the aim of capacitating all program beneficiaries with knowledge, training, and skills that will help them become self-sufficient, productive, and empowered individuals. Through livelihood subsidies and trainings, the program aims to enable the beneficiaries to contribute significantly to their families and become of beneficial presence to communities they serve. Peace 911 is a national peace-building program that will help address issues in conflict-afflicted areas by bringing basic services closer to the people. This program aims to use the whole-of-nation approach in partnership with national government agencies, academic institutions, cooperatives, social enterprises, and the private sector. One of the OVP's greatest goals is to finally construct the permanent office of the Vice President, which will institutionalize the legacy of the office beyond any individual or administration, and more importantly, give Filipinos stable and easy access to our services. Over the next few years, the OVP will prepare to establish a permanent office, which will feature a ceremonial area, Museum of the Vice Presidents, Administrative Office, residential area, and headquarters for the security personnel detailed to the Vice President. To realize the impact the OVP envisions for the Philippines, to implement our programs, projects, and activities, the Department of Budget and Management has recommended a budget of 2.3 billion pesos for financial year 2023, vis-a-vis the 709 million peso proposal of the OVP, 223% higher than the financial year 2022 budget as appropriated. With the proposed budget to implement the OVP's plans and deliver efficient, accessible, and responsive programs in 2023, we are positive that the OVP will realize its vision for the Philippines and empower Filipinos across the country. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, VP Sara.
Thank you.
Congratulations on some of the innovations you've planning or implementing already. Is there anything else before we turn it over to the senators for any questions they may have?
That is it, Your Honor. We just want to leave as a permanent project the office and residence of the future vice presidents. And then for all the other projects that we are doing, that is based on the priority of the present staff complement of the office of the vice president.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice President. So now we'll turn it over to the Senate President if he has any questions. Senate President Pro Temp, any questions? I think the questions will come from the Minority Leader then.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll cut to the chase. Go ahead.
Welcome to our Vice President. Thank you for the presentation. So, according to the presentation, ma'am, your office requested 709 million pesos. So tama yung information that reached me that the OVP requested total obligation budget of 709 million, and yet the NEP recommendation is 2.3 billion. So anong sobra dito is 1.6 billion po ang sobrang bigay sa requested. So may we know if you're really prepared to ramp up your activities kasi you only requested for 709 million pesos.
Yes, sir. We'd like to call Kelvin, our budget officer. He was with the previous administration and with the present administration.
So we'll recognize
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sir
With
Tenido.
regard
Go ahead,
to the
sir.
2022 budget proposal, it was submitted under the term of Vice President Leni Robredo. And upon the assumption of office of Vice President Sara Duterte, the OVP have consulted the DBM regarding the additional funding for 2023, specifically for the augmentation of the financial assistance subsidy for the operations of Magnegosyo Taday, the livelihood assistance, and the medical assistance program of the OVP. Further, we have also augmented the provision for the supplies and materials for the implementation of the Pagbabago campaign, and then the provision for welfare goods for the during disaster and the food boxes for individuals in crisis and emergencies po. Thank you.
So that
With your permission, Minority Leader, I'd just like to acknowledge the virtual presence of our Senior Vice Chair, who will be chairing the budget hearing of the DepEd later, Senator Pia Cayetano. Good afternoon, ma'am. Go ahead, Minority Leader. Virtual lang, virtual daw po.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was what I suspected. So since the budget call was early this year, so submitted by the previous office of the Vice President. So it is correct to say that the office of the Vice President, the incumbent one, you're really asking for 2.3 billion. You asked for that. You asked for the 2.3 billion pesos. Tama ba, Kevin?
Yes, sir. We have consulted the DBM po.
Yeah, so then DBM gave you the full amount that you requested. Okay. So, okay, let's now go to one item which I'm also being asked, kasi as a legislator, tinatanong din ako doon about the confidential fund. Kano ba ito?
I'd like to acknowledge also Vice Chair of the committee and the Chairman of the Committee on Basic Education, Senator Win Gatchalian. Afternoon, sir.
Okay. I have to ask this, Madam Vice President, and to your staff, because I'm also being asked as a legislator. This is, sabi nila, this is a first for the OVP. I do not know if that is a correct, but a 500 million peso allocation for confidential funds. So apparently, siguro when the last office of the Vice President made the submission during the budget call, there was no confidential fund. And then the new office of the Vice President asked for 500 million. May we know how?
Before I give the floor to the Vice President, with your permission, Minority Leader, dear colleagues, just to state for the record that the OVP, just to place things in perspective now, Your Honors, the OVP, I'm looking at the records, received confidential or intelligence funds for 13 years, from year 2000 to 2012, Your Honor. So that's just to place that on the record.
Was it confidential or intelligence? I think there's a difference. There's a difference.
There was no distinction, Your Honor, until 2011 when it became, I think there was a distinction made between confidential, which were given to civilian agencies, whereas intelligence is given to, I hope I'm not wrong, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'll subject this to some colatilia, but I think intelligence is given to the military and
So now-
security agencies, Your Honor.
So proper terminology now would be confidential.
I think the proper terminology now is...
That is how I understand.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, it may have been given before, let us say, in amounts of 5 million pesos in 1 year, but this time kasi 500 million pesos in 1 year. So may we know how are we also to answer the questions asked of us, how to justify this item in the OVP's budget?
Yes. Yes, I'd like to repeat the manifestation of Senator Angara, Your Honor. Since 2003 to 2012, there were funds, intel and confidential funds that were granted the office of the Vice President. And as to the amount, Your Honor, and the propriety of the confidential funds, as we have manifested in the House of Representatives, we leave it to the honorable members of the Senate to decide on this matter, Your Honor.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. So when you made that statement pala, that refers is exactly to the same item in the budget. So thank you for that. And then ang nakikita ko lang po kasi is the plan is also to build a permanent home for the office of the Vice President, and I think there is an amount here of 10 million for land acquisition. So have we already identified the specific lot that we intend to acquire or purchase for the permanent home of the OVP?
Yes, Your Honor. Right now, we are talking to GSIS of properties under them that can be donated or sold to the Office of the Vice President as a permanent property of the Office of the Vice President. We initially allotted 10 million for thinking of a down payment just to secure the contract for next year, and then ask for additional amounts for multi-year payments of the property.
Do we already have an idea, Madam Vice President, of the total acquisition cost of the lot? And then do we have an idea already now of the total cost of the structure itself?
Right now, sir, we are looking at one property only, and that is the Coconut Palace. But there is no amount yet identified or given by GSIS. But we are still looking at other properties as well of the government that can be used, given to the Office of the Vice President for a permanent office.
At least we know the medium to long-term plan of the Office of the Vice President. So, kasi tatanong ko nga sana yun, why not use the Coconut Palace? Yung pala, this time, it's a purchase of the, possible purchase of the Coconut Palace, and maybe renovation to accommodate yung mga museum, something na mga plano po natin. Well, at any rate, Mr. Chairman, so once we acquire, what is the plan, Madam Vice President, once we have this permanent home? We will no longer maintain the satellite offices that we are currently maintaining?
Your Honor, we still intend to continue the satellite offices because these are the offices that cascade down the projects of the central office. Particularly when we came in, we saw that the medical and burial assistance of the Office of the Vice President, which started during the term of Vice President Noli de Castro, was concentrated in the NCR area. So the satellite offices deliver those assistance to the areas where we established them.
And siguro talagang tinangkilik yun, ano? Our constituents really availed of the medical and burial services. Well, nakita ko rin po yung mga effort natin to give a lot of services to our people. We have food trucks, Peace 911, Pagbabago, and we have this Libreng Sakay. But of course, when we try to replicate what the entire government is doing, it will really cost us. It will cost us a lot, and we really cannot afford it. Kaya napansin ko rin po sa Libreng Sakay, we have free transportation, but 5 buses. Meaning to say, we are limited to 5 areas siguro because kailangan predictable din yung services. So that's just an observation, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice President, na siguro we should just select the services that yung talagang kailangan ng taong bayan at saka hindi hindi na binibigay ng ibang ahensya. Kasi for example, itong libreng sakay, DOTR, dito naman sa Metro Manila, tapos may mga fuel subsidy programs din, pati ang PNOC, gusto rin nila mag-offer na gano'n. So, as part of the medium-term fiscal framework of the Marcos administration, gusto rin nila yung fiscal consolidation, yung mga economies of scale. Pinag-aralan ko po kasi rin yung MTFF ng Marcos administration. So siguro we can we should not try to replicate the entire government setup through the office of the Vice President. May we get your reaction, ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Senator. Yes, sir, we are not duplicating or replicating the existing libreng sakay of the Department of Transportation. In fact, the buses, sir, were lent to the Office of the Vice President, which we lent to the DOTR. So instead of the DOTR renting buses, they have free 5 buses from the OVP, for which they don't pay for the lease of the buses, except that the...
So dapat ma'am, bayaran pa kayo sa lease ng ano. Tumulong sila sa construction ng building ninyo, ma'am.
We just pay for the salaries of the driver and the gasoline po.
With the permission of the body, I move for the approval of the
Hold on,
budget.
I was told, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Okay.
Senator Bongo, who's also committee vice chair, wants to make a manifestation.
Okay.
I would like to
Okay.
acknowledge one of our committee vice chairs, the kababayan of former mayor, now Vice President Sara Duterte, Senator Vice Chair, Senator Bongo. Sir, good afternoon. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair,
Are you
Vice
after?
President Sara Duterte, fellow senators, distinguished resource persons, and all those watching today. Allow me to deliver a quick manifestation. I will not be interposing any questions. I just want to express my full support for the budget of the Office of the Vice President. As the second highest office in the land, the Office of the Vice President is mandated to perform executive, ceremonial, and advocacy functions, as well as collaboration with stakeholders and organizations in both the public and private sectors to develop and promote programs that will uplift the lives of the Filipino people. Therefore, the OVP will need a strong budgetary support to realize their mandates and deliver what is expected of them. Mr. Chair, as you know, first time in a very long time po na muling sabay nanalo ang isang magkalyadong presidente at vice presidente sa ating bansa. Kaya naman masasabi kong napaka-crucial ng trabaho ng ating vice presidente ngayong administrasyon. She will work closely with the president. On top of that, she will also spearhead one of the most important agencies in the country, the Department of Education. Overall, she will play a vital role in nation building, economic recovery, and addressing educational gaps in our country. At isisingit ko na lang po, knowing the Vice President, since she started her public service, alam ko pong magagamit po ang pondo ng kanyang opisina sa DepEd, sa Office of the Vice President sa tama. At walang masasayang. Stricto po si Vice President. Mas stricto pa po siya kaysa kay dating Pangulong Duterte when it comes to sa paghawak ng pondo ng gobyerno. For 2023, a chunk of the OVP's budget will be allocated for good governance and social services. I am confident with the leadership of Vice President Sara Duterte. These programs will not only be successful but also beneficial to our countrymen. And I am also very much optimistic that with the help of the Office of the Vice President, we will soon recover from this pandemic. Tulungan po natin ang ating Vice Presidente, ang Department of Education. Again,
na po ng permanenteng tahanan.
Again, I would like to reiterate my full support.
Kung meron pong mga taong dama po na
Pumasok.
yung dama po yung pakiramdam ng walang tahanan, tayo po yun, Mr. Chair.
Senator Go, we'll get back to you kasi nawala ho kayo for a while. Balikan ho namin kayo after Senator Gatchalian with your indulgence, sir.
Saan po ako nawala, sir?
Ano?
Saan portion po ako nawala?
Hindi partly, nawala.
Narinig na natin lahat.
Senator Gatchalian has the floor right now. Senator Go, with your indulgence, with your permission, kasi nawala ho kayo momentarily. We'll give you the floor again after Senator Gatchalian finishes his statement. Please.
Sige po, antay lang po ako.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Sinabi ko lang ho kung meron pong mga taong alam po yung pakiramdam ng walang tahanan, tayo po yun. Because wala ho tayong permanent home. And being an important institution, and OVP is also a very important institution, kailangan na ho tayo gumawa ng hakbang na makahanap po ng permanenteng tahanan. Hindi lang po ang Senado, kung hindi po yung mga opisina katulad po ng Office of the Vice President. So, Mr. Chair, I support that budget, and the 10 million down payment obviously is not enough. And so we will support an additional budget so that we will have a permanent home for our Vice President and the future Vice Presidents to come. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you for that forward-looking statement, Your Honor. We'll turn it back to Vice Chair Go if he wishes to continue his statement. Vice Chair Senator Bong, are you still online, sir?
Opo, sir.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir. Medyo nawawala ko kayo kanina.
Mr. Chair, as you know, first time po since panahon ni President Gloria and Vice President Noli na magkasama pong nanalo ang presidente at vice-presidente. Kaya napakasal po ng trabaho ng ating Vice President ngayong administrasyon. She will work closely with the President, and on top of that, she will also spearhead one of the most important agencies in the country, the DepEd. Overall, she will play a vital role in nation building, economic recovery, and addressing educational gaps in our country. For 2023, a chunk of OVP's budget will be allocated for good governance and social services. I am confident that with the leadership of Vice President Sara, these programs will not only be successful, but also beneficial to our countrymen. I am also very much optimistic with the help of the Office of the Vice President, we will soon recover from this pandemic. And knowing the Vice President Sara, since she started her public service po, alam ko pong magagamit sa tama ang pondo ng gobyerno at walang masasayang. Stricto po si Vice President Sara pagdating po sa paghawak ng pondo ng gobyerno. Mas stricto pa po yan sa dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Salamat. Again, I would like to reiterate my full support for the budget of the Office of the Vice President at saka po sa
Thank you very much, Senator Bongo, Vice Chair of the committee. I'm sure your support is very much appreciated. Now we turn it over to the Senate President for hopefully the last intervention of the afternoon.
Without further ado, we'd like to second the motion of Senator Bong Revilla in approving the budget of the OVP on committee level to the plenary level once we resume our sessions on November. Congratulations po.
Thank you very much, Your Honors. Thank you, Mr. President, and congratulations to the OVP. We thank them for their presence, the personal appearance of VP Sara, and will favorably endorse it without prejudice to any requests that they may make towards our committee. Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. Can we suspend momentarily, then we'll begin in about 5 to 10 minutes or whenever Secretary wishes. I'm sure we call a bathroom break, a health break in the meantime. Session is suspended. Hearing is suspended.